Welcome to the Emerging Screenwriters interview series. Today in this episode, we are lucky enough to have Chaseedaw Giles with us. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Thank you for being part of this, and I'm excited to learn all about you. So let's just dive right in.
Okay.
Um, Easy question at the beginning. What are you watching right now? What is kind of in your zeitgeist right now?
So I'm always watching like Bob's Burgers or Family Guy or
Yeah.
like I'm always watching new episodes of those Simpsons. But I think right now Bob's Burgers I'm watching the most as far as cartoons like animations go. And I'm watching Breaking Bad. I started from season 1 and right now I'm in the last season, I think. So I'm watching Breaking Bad and I'm watching a new show on Hulu called The Other Black Girl.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been watching that. And the other one I'm watching episodes of is Lie to Me.
Lie to me.
It's like this guy who is a specialist in like facial movements and
Right. Yes. Yeah. Is that on Hulu now?
that is on Hulu also.
It's like Suits. They're putting all of the things on Hulu. They're like, yes, binge it, go.
And these are shows I hadn't watched before, like Lie to Me. So it's interesting, the whole like, because then now it's making me so like, when people are talking to you and you're looking at like, oh, what was that?
Totally. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I worked in many reality shows and I did this magic show called The Mentalist, and
Mm.
which was similar to what they were trying to do with the show The Mentalist. Like he knew he could like get people to say stuff, and it's that whole magic, but it's really a skill. So after I did that, I was like watching people and like trying to figure out like
Yeah.
how do they get someone to say something, or like, yeah, all of that stuff. It just like starts percolating in your brain. Um, so what are your favorite, if you were to pick like your favorite or most influential movies or TV shows that you've seen, what has influenced you?
I would say all of Jordan Peele's films have really influenced me because I've always been into horror and like drama and darker things. But I've never seen, you don't often see a lot of black actors in horror films,
Right.
and you don't see a lot of horror that is like cultural type. So like that kind of opened my eyes to this new genre of like what is scary for black men and women. And it's a whole different it's a whole like
Right.
there's so much there. So like I even wrote like a short that I do want to produce one day that is like about like colorism but exploring colorism as like a horror.
Cool. I love that. Yeah, he opened, I think he just across the board in so many ways opened so many doors and eyes into what you can turn horror into. And it's
Yeah.
not just the sleepover, the guy knocking on the door. It's, yeah, I'm a huge fan also of Jordan Peele. It's like we can all do that. That's the greatest part about it, is that we can all tell stories and expand the worlds that we're in. And I think he just sort of like blew all of our minds.
Yeah, totally.
Um, so let's talk about you. What what do you write? How did you get into screenwriting? We will talk about your musical side also. I know you have that aspect. So let's specifically talk about, how did you get into screenwriting? Where did that begin?
So when I was like fresh out of college, I must have been like 20. But I wrote like a I don't know if it was like I don't know what it was. It was like a pilot, but it didn't have any kind of formatting. Like I did not know anything about screenwriting or producing or making anything. I just like wanted to make something and got some of my friends together and some folks with a camera, and it wasn't very good. It was not very good. But that was a long time ago.
Mhm.
Most recently, which I consider to be my first real attempt at screenwriting, was during the pandemic because so my day job is I'm a journalist, and there was one particular news story that I wrote about a barber in West Baltimore,
Mhm.
and just the community and the story kind of really stuck with me, and it really had me thinking about like black men and who cares for them and like what films are there that explore Black men's feelings? And I couldn't think of any besides like Antoine Fisher, and like Moonlight, and but not that many.
Yeah.
Not that many movies that explore men's feelings in general. Um, and so, but that story was about gun violence, and it really stuck with me. And then I moved to LA December of 2019.
Mm-hmm.
The story published like March 2020, like during the pandemic, but also during the Black Lives Matter movement and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So there was just a lot going on. I had moved to LA, the city was shut down, like everything I had planned when I moved here, there was like nothing for me to do because I do a lot of performance art.
Mm-hmm.
So I came here thinking I'd be auditioning and going to open mics and doing like so far sound shows and like just different shows like how I was in DC. And there was none of that. And everything was on Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
And so there were a lot of online programs that started because of the pandemic. So like I did this mentorship program called Start with 8 Hollywood, and I got matched with a guy named Sal Caleros, who he's one of the co-executive producers of Snowfall.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was like, well, what is your goal for this? It was like a writing mentorship program. So he was like, what is your goal? And I said, I have this story and I want to, by the end of the year, write a feature film. But I have never written a feature film before. I don't know screenwriting format. Like, I don't know any of that stuff. So he was like, all right, well, let's start from scratch. And he taught me from scratch, like how to make a beat sheet and then out like fill it all out, and we just went back and forth for that whole like period, really 2 years during the like with the height of the pandemic. We went back and forth where I would write a draft, he would give me notes, I would go back and rewrite, he would give me more notes, and he was really patient. Like it was a lot of his time, which I really appreciate, but like, and sometimes it would take him like a month or two to get back to me, but it was, I mean, like I didn't have anything to do but wait. So I didn't mind. So yeah, over the 2020 and 2021, we wrote and rewrote that script, or I wrote and rewrote that script. And then once I got to like the completed draft, I was like, what is next? So what do I do now? And he said, well, apply to some fellowships. And he was like, the Nicole Fellowship is the biggest one that everyone knows, but you know, go to the WGA website. They have a list of reputable fellowships and stuff. So I applied to a bunch, not expecting anything because it was my first time. And,
Oh,
you know, so I did well in the Nicole. And then from that, like, I just started writing more stuff because he was like, you know, write a pilot, write a short. So I wrote that short. I wrote another short, which is like a comedy, like a dark comedy about climate change. And I wrote a pilot, which is also based off of some of my reporting about cosmetic surgery. It's like a murder mystery slash drama. It's kind of like Nip Tuck. Nip Tuck is another show that I really like.
yeah.
So it's like a modern Nip Tuck. And then and yeah, that's really how I got into screenwriting. It was the pandemic, lack of things to do. But I'm a creative, so you're gonna find a way to create, you know. And screenwriting was it for me. Like I love writing, so it was pretty natural for me to just go back to writing because I couldn't do like performance art. You know, I'm in this new city. I don't know anybody. I don't have any connects, and then
Um,
everything shut down. So all I had was the computer, really.
I feel like so many people have similar stories. I feel bad for people that just moved here to LA,
Yeah.
you know, like who just moved anywhere, quite frankly, and then it just shuts down, and then you're like, I don't really have like a network of people or anyone that I'm in my pod, like I'm my own pod. So I mean, that's honestly just like, you know, for
It was hard.
like finding a way to be creative. And I cannot believe that the final cut, which was that script, right, was your first script. I blown away.
Thank
I
you.
read it.
I really like, I honestly wasn't expecting anything to come from it, but I needed something to do. I knew I wanted to do more with that story.
Yeah.
And it honestly, like when I think back on when I moved to LA, I'm like, wow, like you went through some stuff, like, you know, kind of giving myself like some grace of just that.
Yeah.
was a really hard period in my life, transitioning, moving out here, not knowing anyone, not having any like close friends or family here, just
Being
everything kind of being
Yeah.
shut down. It was just crazy. And writing that script, it gave me like it really like gave me like a purpose,
Yeah.
something I could focus on. It gave me something to do. I think had I not figured, okay, this is going to be a project I'm going to work on, I don't know if I would have stayed in LA because it was really hard.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the other parts of you, the performance artist, the musician,
Mhm.
all of that. How do you think, and since we're talking about writing, how do you think that that helps you and kind of plays into your storytelling? I know it's all storytelling, but in
Mhm.
terms of screenwriting, um, is it a way for you to connect in different ways and then bring it in? Like, how do you think those all intertwine?
So it's interesting. Like I actually just this week Monday and last Monday, me and my partner, we like have a we perform together. He plays like all the instruments, and so we put a show together. Like I have reached out to the strike captain for the WB lot, and so the past 2 Mondays we were like on the picket line performing live for the people striking.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that was a lot of fun. I also think that when it comes to music, like music it's all part of film, you know, like you need music in the films. I think now I make a lot of music keeping in mind like a more broader audience.
Mm,
What I'm trying to do eventually is find a way for all those things to kind of marry together. Like with the short film that I'm doing, I would love to put some original music in it and like um and performing is like acting a lot too, when you think about it, because it's not just the technical part of it, like can you deliver vocally, but it's also like a lot of emotions in it. You're like telling a story. So, you know, I take acting classes too, and I'm an actor, and I'm always struck by how similar the two things are in terms of like you're still. I think sometimes I forget with music that I'm still like performing like the way an actor would. I'm still like trying to convey a message. There's still like beats within a song, you know. Um and it's just something that I think I compulsively do. Like I'm kind of a musical person. I hum a lot to myself like when I'm
yeah,
sitting. Some of my friends say I kind of like talk in a sing-songy way. Like
probably
um
more together.
yeah, like the way that I talk sometimes, it's like I am like that. So I think it's just part of how I express myself. And it also helps me just kind of relate and understand the world around me.
Yeah.
I have a hard time with interviews and speaking and like words, but I have a hard time being vulnerable and
Mm,
like talking about how I feel or things I'm going through, or like I'm also really sensitive. At the height of the Black Lives Matter movement, because I work in social media, I was seeing a lot of clips online and it was really having a negative effect on me just because like even though it's not happening to me, just like seeing that
technically, it's a lot. Yeah.
yeah, it just like so like I'm a really sensitive person, and I think like the writing, the music, all of that kind of helps me process all of that.
Totally.
Um, and it's the best way. Like I'm the type of person that if I'm really upset with a loved one, rather than having a really big long conversation, I might want to like write them a letter or something.
Yeah.
Because it's just
Same.
like easier for me.
Yeah. So you can articulate it in the way that is like what you want to say. Because sometimes words can get in the way. Words
Yeah.
are beautiful, and then sometimes words can veer you off in a different direction. The thing that I love about songwriting, my husband's a songwriter too, is that it's like the least amount of words and the very specific words that go into telling a story. And I think for me, in terms of screenwriting, what I kind of take from watching him is the amount of words matter, and
Mhm.
you don't need as many words as you think you do, or dialogue specifically, because it's a lot more about what you're showing the person going through rather than what they're saying. So it kind of goes with what you're saying about writing the letter to somebody instead of having a big long conversation. It's kind of like the same thing I think about in screenwriting is like instead of them saying this big long monologue, what are they doing? how can,
Mhm.
how can you go into that silence of not saying so many things, to get the point across? So I think
Yeah,
it's all like
exactly.
super interesting.
And even like with the final cut, like it's about mental health, it's about Black men's mental health, it's about gun violence. And like, so I work in healthcare reporting, and I'm just like realizing when I wrote that script that you can be impactful. Like, entertainment can also be a vehicle for like change.
Yes, for sure.
Um, and without it being like heavy handed or preachy or like any of those things, like rather than, my news story was great, but rather than like me maybe getting up on a soapbox and like, I guess it's my form of protest, you
Yeah.
know, because in that film, like while all that stuff was happening around me and then I'm in my like apartment, like writing this feature film, it was a way for me to like talk about all of those issues,
Mhm.
but put it in a way where I was telling the story of this man and like how all of these issues are affecting this one man, like really trying to humanize these big important issues.
Yeah.
Because even though it is about a Black community and a Black man, I think a lot of men just in general can relate. And I think if there's a man in your life that you love, then you can relate to that too, because
Yeah.
I think really it was like my brother. My brother was like, "Well, no one really cares about men's feelings," and I was like, "Why would you say that?" And he said, "It's
Aw.
true. You're just supposed to provide and protect, and like no one asks you how you feel." And that like really struck me. So I was thinking of all of these things when I was writing that script, and it just made me very curious about, okay, a man who's seen as a provider and protector and seen as like such this tough macho guy, like what is going on with him and like how is he dealing with that?
Yeah, I think that's sort of like the next phase in the mental health world is let's get back to men and dealing with their feelings and not having to be so strong all the time and just like step it down. And men don't normally have that many friends. Like we as women have so many more friends,
Hmm.
hang out with, talk to, but it doesn't seem like men have that many like friends unless you're a fraternity, have that
Yeah.
number. Or
Or
you
they're just
have
not
partners.
allowed to be like, they're not allowed to be as even like women, when women hug and kiss each other, no one bats an eye. But for
Yeah,
specifically like heterosexual men, I think it's really tough because like there's such this standard of like what being a man is supposed to look like that I think adds a lot of pressure too that makes men not really want to show vulnerability and emotions and stuff like
interesting. We could talk about this all day, I feel like.
that.
Let's move on to I want to know from you when you're thinking about a script or a movie, what do you think is the most important element that a screenwriter brings to their storytelling? Um, is it thematic? Is it that what you were talking about where you like hiding, I call it hiding the vegetables, hide the message underneath the good stuff, and so it's easily digestible but you're still getting the good stuff out of it. um is it plot, is it character? What do you think makes a screenplay stand out in terms of like away from the rest?
I think authenticity.
Hmm.
Um, because I've seen some films where you can tell that it's a subject that maybe the writer is not that close to or familiar with because there'll just be a lack of certain sensitivities. I think like one of my favorite movies is The Joy Luck Club, because I think it was such an authentic script and it was about all these different types of relationships women have with each other, like mother, daughter, aunt, sisters, like and it didn't matter that it wasn't a culture that I could relate to.
Hmm.
The authenticity of it let me see that like we're not all that different. Like on our face, we might have different customs and culture, but as far as interpersonal relationships go, we all deal with the same kind of things, things between mothers and daughters and stuff like that. So that's one of my favorite movies because I believe it was so authentic. And the movies that stand out to me, I think, have a certain level of just like kind of raw authenticity to them.
And then how would you describe your voice or your style of writing? What do you, when you talk about, when somebody says, what do you write, what do you say?
I say I write drama and horror. And I used to kind of like when I started writing screenplays, it's funny because I'm like, I just started, but a lot of time has passed. It's almost been 4 years that I've been living in LA. It's just the pandemic blurs time.
I know.
But um, but I would say I write about a lot of dark things. I write about a lot of things having to do with mental health
Mhm.
and self-esteem. And I think those are all things that I've wrestled with, especially just being different. Like I got bullied a lot in high school because I'm really tall. I'm like almost 6 feet tall. And I've been really tall since I for as long as I could remember. I think I was like 5'9" almost immediately. So like I've been tall for a long time. I have dark brown skin, and I just looked different from other kids. And I was raised in this very kind of just religious way where I was more like mild mannered, and I was a good kid. Like I did my homework and I followed the rules. So I am a nerd. So I had big bifocals. So I got picked on a lot. Um, so themes having to do with like identity, self-esteem, mental health, and like injustice and stuff like that. I write about, but not in this heavy-handed way. I do write about it in terms of like a drama or a horror. And I read this quote that said that people that like dive into the darkness, it's not that like I'm obsessed with dark, scary things, but it said something like those people are trying to find the light. So
Mhm.
I think I dive into scary things and hard and traumatic things because I'm trying to find the like the light in it, or like like the silver, not silver lining, but just like the way through it, the way out of it.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like we're similar in that way. I wasn't bullied nearly in the same way because I was very skinny and gangly. Like my elbows were bigger than my arms, so I was like, "Ooh." But I certainly like, and I think the thing I'm trying to get to is like a lot of times as writers, we find that whatever level of trauma it was growing up, we pull that into our writing, and that thematically becomes our voice in terms of the stories that we're telling. So I love that you said that about when you go to darkness, it's not because we enjoy the darkness. It's not that we love horror and murder and blood. It's just we're trying to identify something within that realm that resonates with whatever it is, emotions or dealing with life, and so how certain people deal with things, and like how maybe how
Yeah.
we somehow got through some darkness of our own and made it here, and now we have the ability to tell those stories. So like, are you, yeah, it's like continuing to open up and expand, and I think Jordan Peele does that very well.
Yeah, I think so, which is why like he really inspires me. I always say he is the only African American to win an Academy Award for Best Screenplay. And I was like, well, I'm gonna be the first Black woman.
That's awesome. I love that. Um, well, let's talk about, okay, so let's talk a little bit about ISA.
Mhm.
How did you learn about ISA? How did you become part of ISA? I know that you are new to our development slate. So, yay, we are very excited to have you. But how did you become involved in ISA? What was it, the diversity initiative? What was it that got you involved?
It was that one, the diversity initiative. I already had this screenplay done that a lot, like, was placing in fellowships, and like that a lot, I've gotten a lot of really great feedback from and interest in. So I was like, why not? So I just submitted it to the diversity initiative. Again, like not expecting anything. I'm just kind of like, I'm just very much a doer. So
Yeah.
like, I
And
just,
just seeing, kind of like see
yeah.
how it resonates, right?
Yeah.
What advice would you give to new screenwriters, new creatives in general, from your perspective?
Don't I have all these like cliche sayings,
Mm.
but don't waste your time feeling old while you're young. Like I think that not just me, but just it's just the conversation of even just artists around me, especially women, get so hung up on like time and age, and like, is it too late? Is it too late? Should I do this? Maybe and it's just kind of like the time is going to pass anyway. So like, I could have wrestled with myself over and over about writing this screenplay, and the time would have passed anyway. But,
Right.
now like that, I just decided to do it. The pandemic has happened, and, there's still, COVID is still going on, but I'm just saying like, I accomplished something rather than like, wondering, should I do it or not? I did it and now it's done. And like other things have come from it. Same with moving to LA. I was nervous about moving out here. I was like, oh, maybe I wish I had moved here like 10 years ago. Maybe I should have gone to college here. But like, I'm glad I did because I moved here and then the pandemic happened and everyone was working from home anyway. So
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I'm glad I made the move. So I think the advice I would give is just kind of don't just be you. Just be your great, fabulous self. Believe in your talent. It might take longer than you think, and
Mm,
that's okay. Um, you're on your own journey, but more than anything, just start wherever you are. Like rather than wasting time wondering when you should start, just start.
right.
Whatever it is, just start and just do it. And I'm even telling myself that now because like I have new music I want to put out. I'm working on a music video and I have my insecurities and my like, oh, like music, should I still be making music? And it's such a silly thing when you say it out loud, like, should I still be making music? Like, of course, why would you stop? You know, like just kind of get out of your own way and just do the things that you love to do and don't question whether you're good enough to do them or you're the right age to do them or you're the right this or that because I don't think we get those impulses to create out of nowhere. I think they're there because that's what we're supposed to be doing.
I think that's great advice. It reminded me of this Instagram thing that I saw that was, you know, most people are going to be mediocre at most things, but it stops us from doing those things. You like to dance, dance. Doesn't mean you
Mhm.
have to be, the top dancer. Doesn't mean you have to be dancing for Taylor Swift. It's like just dance. Same with,
Mhm.
even if you don't feel like you're a good enough writer, writing is something that you get better the more you do it.
The
Same,
more you do it.
stop worrying about being like the best instantly. Just do start. Yeah, like you said, I think that.
Exactly. Because nobody was like, before anyone became who they are, they were the same person that you are, like wondering if they're
Yeah,
good enough. And like, everyone has a starting point. And the writer that I was in 2020 versus the writer I am now, totally different. I have so much more experience now. And that's like you said, it's been 4 years of me like really immersing myself in screenwriting. So like of course you're gonna get better. When I the first draft I wrote maybe wasn't even that good. Now I really like the product that I have. So like, and the funny thing is I applied to the Nicole again and I didn't place at all. So
mhm,
like apparently my first draft was better than my more polished draft.
right.
So
It's also just so subjective.
so subjective,
Yeah, it's
exactly.
who you get and what mood they're in that day. If that's what they're looking for, if they just read something that was similar, it's so many different factors that, you're waiting for one person or two people's approval.
Exactly.
It matter because all you need is one person.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying basically, is that it doesn't matter because I didn't win the Nicole, but I could still end up getting this movie made and like who knows what could happen with it. So it's just kind of like whatever is in your heart to do or create, you should just do it.
Yeah. And what is your, just final question, what's your big goal? What's your career dreams? Uh,
Mhm.
is it like directing a movie and putting your music in it and acting in it? Like, what's the big dream at the top?
Yeah, I think you kind of said it. Like ultimately, I would like to full time, like I would like to not have a day job and be able to sustain and thrive off of the creative arts. But I want to have a career like Donald Glover or like Quinta or like Issa Rae, where I want to write and act and direct and make music and maybe even do it all in one show. Or, maybe this film, I wrote it. I'm creative consultant on production. Maybe I get to have a hand in some of the music supervision. Maybe the next one, I act in it. Like the short I wrote, I want to act in and I want to put original music in. So like I would love to be kind of like I think like a Donald Glover and just be like a multi hyphenate.
I can see that happening for you. I like it. I wish I did more thing. I do these interviews, but I do not like being in front of the camera. It's not where I want to live. Like this makes me sweaty, even though I'm totally fine doing it. Um, but yeah, I think that's amazing, and I think you should do it all. Just put
Yeah.
it all. Just put it all in there because I love when people put so many different parts of themselves in things. I think it's so cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and I wanna is in real life, I'm like a shy person,
Mhm,
which I find it's funny that a lot of artists are like that.
mhm.
But I'm like a shy person, but there's so much I want to share and talk about, and ultimately, I really want to help people. I think like I have a really soft spot for mental health and for like just identity and stuff like that. So I like to make things and then have people, when people come up to me and say, "Oh, that song, like I can so relate to that," or "Thank you for that." Like those are the most rewarding for me.
And I
Mhm.
think a lot of us we're forced extroverts, but we're introverts. So we kind of
Yeah.
and that we come out and we're like, okay, that was exhausting. Now I'm out of my hole again.
Yeah, that is totally my personality.
After this, you're like, I'm exhausted. Um,
Yeah.
Thank you so much for doing this interview with us. We are going to see many big things from you in the future. So I'm excited that we got to chat with you now so that in the future, when we interview you again, reference this and talk about all the things that you wanted to do when you're doing them.
Oh yeah, I can't wait. I'm just catching up to my future self, I guess.
Awesome. I love that. Catching up to your future self. I think that's the title. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.